successful seasons. Audacy NFL insider Ross Tucker insider calls are brought to you by Nationwide for your insurance and financial needs. Nationwide is on your side. Well, Ross is, usually right up front with how he sort of roots for Buffalo and would love to have seen the Bills, finally get there this year. It did not happen. Ross, McDermott being fired, how surprised are you?
It's so funny that you just asked that, because I was going to ask you guys on Friday of last week what percentage chance you would have given that McDermott would be fired if they lost to the Broncos in that game.
10%.
I think I would have said 0.
I would not have said 0. I probably would have said 10 to 20%, somewhere in that. Well, let me ask you this. What about before the Jags game, if they had lost the Jags game?
That's a different answer.
A little higher.
That's a different answer for me. And it seems silly to split hairs that finely, but really, Ross, I thought the way the season was tracking, I don't know how much we ever talked about it with you on these visits every Tuesday, but we could tell, and it seems we were right, that there was a divide happening between McDermott and Beane. Certain things that McDermott said all season about the roster just sounded out of character for him, like shots at choices that were made that maybe he didn't like or get to weigh in on fully, or maybe disagreed with. I don't know. So I would have told you I thought there was a chance that when this season ended in any way but a Super Bowl, that Beane might be on his way out, because I always thought McDermott had the upper hand in that relationship with the owner, and it turns out I was way off on that, because the opposite seems to be true.
You know who always has the upper hand with the owner?
The guy that sits with him?
The guy that sits next to him during the game.
Yeah.
Always. I mean, look around the NFL and see how many places where the GM state, I mean, that's just off the top of my head, Buffalo, the Giants, the Ravens, where the GM stayed, but the coach is gone. And I think that's in large part. But interestingly, GMs almost never get a second chance, but coaches get second chances all the time. It's such a fascinating dynamic. I think we all, in our own lives, have probably gone through exactly what Terry Pegula has gone through over the last couple years. How do you decide? Is being good enough? Or do you get fed up with being good enough to not be good enough? Mm-hmm. And you want to take risk in your life to try to do something great? And I will tell you, I think it really depends on your personality and your culture. And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I think it's really interesting that at the same time Buffalo does this, the Green Bay Packers are extending Matt LaFleur. Because now LaFleur hasn't been in Green Bay as long as McDermott was in Buffalo, but they haven't gotten over the hump. He had Aaron Rodgers as the MVP of the league 2 years. They didn't get to the Super Bowl. And in fact, that organization has had really high-level quarterback play for a long time, and they haven't gotten back to the Super Bowl since whatever that year was, 2009?
Yeah, 10.
2010, yeah. Yet they are extending Matt LaFleur because their belief is, hey, we like being in the mix every year, and we like sustained success, and we're just a player or two. And you can do that every year. You can say, well, Micah Parsons got hurt or whatever. We're a player or two from getting over the hump, and we don't want to take the risk of moving on from LaFleur, getting a coach in here that's not good, and taking a step back.
There's also no owner there, right? There's also no owner involved in that,
that's exactly
calculus.
Correct. That's exactly correct. Whereas Terry Pegula said, you know what, I'm willing to take that risk. I'm sick of being good enough to not be good enough to get to where we want to go. Let's give somebody else a chance.
Yeah, 2 fewer years, LaFleur. He was hired in 2019 in Green Bay.
The default...
he's going to be there. He's going to be there for 9 because he's getting a new contract.
Right.
The one difference, too, is that, like, McDermott always labeled, rightly, a defensive coach. So is he the right coach for Allen to get Allen to the top? That's
Right.
kind of like the knee-jerk complaint about him being the Bills coach after these playoff losses over the years. But in this version of events, he's kind of a martyr here now, Ross, because the narrative about the lack of quality on the roster persisted all season. And then he gets the Jacksonville win, and he gets tons of credit for it. McDermott got as much credit for that win as any other game, maybe. And then a week later, he's out. So I think you want to know how we feel and what we're hearing. I think fans are decidedly in his corner, McDermott, when it comes to McDermott versus Bean.
Well, so there's a bunch of different things here. First of all, as it relates to LaFleur, the difference there, too, is when McDermott came to Buffalo, they hadn't been good in forever.
Right.
And he was part of totally turning that around. When LaFleur went to Green Bay, they had Aaron Rodgers, and they had been good a lot. So he inherited a better situation. The other thing that's interesting to me about the whole offensive-minded versus defensive-minded thing is a lot of the issues for the Bills in the playoff games seemingly have been on the defensive side of the ball. You know, it's been like these shootouts or these close games, and it feels like it's not like they haven't been able to get Josh Allen over the hump, although Josh did not play well enough Saturday, unfortunately. But a lot of times it's been the defense that it feels like has let them down. And in terms of the martyr thing, I'll say this. You know, it's not good if in playoff games, you know, you're trying to throw deep shots to Brandon Cooks that much. You know, at this stage of his career when he's been traded more than anybody in NFL history, I think. I mean, I do think that there are spots on the roster that you can look and say, that's not good enough. And it's not for lack of trying at times, but you can say that that's not good enough. I wonder does any of what you're saying about the martyr or any of that, do you think McDermott's post-game comments helped him in that regard?
They could have. They could have, yeah, because, you know, standing up for Buffalo and then, you know, I don't know if you know this, Ross. I mean, locally, there's you know, obviously more attention and more reporting. Do you know that he called back? Like, he had his post-game appearance that we run live on our – Mike and I host post-game, and we carry that news conference live. And then he was still so hot about it after the way he described it that he watched the play over again 20 times sitting at his locker, and he called the pool reporter, who happened to be Jay Skursky from the Buffalo News, and then, like, elaborated even more about how displeased he was about the process, that, you know, he had to call a timeout to get them to spend more time with the play, and, you know, that he thinks it's a catch. And when I saw that, I didn't know that Saturday night. I woke up Sunday morning to that, and that's when I first thought, maybe he knows he's in trouble. Because he's really protesting loudly, and, you know, it stood out. Yeah,
no question. That night I thought, methinks he doth protest too much a little bit. And whether he knew he was on the hot seat and was trying to deflect or defer blame, or he knew that it was too late for that and was going to go down with Bills fans feeling like he stood up for them and was fighting against the man or whatever. I like Sean. You know, I've told you for years, I think he's a good coach, not a great one. And I didn't really care for how he handled the post-game press conference, quite frankly. I just, you know, it's so out of character for him that must have been the logic or the reasoning, because I'm just such a big believer in personal responsibility and accountability. And I don't like after a game, or let's be honest, like, I'm getting texts from my father-in-law who loves the Bills because I played up there for a while, and I thought that was a catch. What do you think? My wife was upset. Like, we really care, you know, like we really care. But the reality is, like, Josh is my favorite player in the NFL. He needed to play better, you know, like the careless fumble, the bad interception. You know, he misses Shakir on that little wide receiver screen at his feet, he probably would have scored. So that's a touchdown instead of a field goal. He missed Hardman on a big chunk play. Dawson Knox would have been one of the most epic game-winning touchdowns in NFL history.
Right.
I mean, if he had hit him. And then it's not like it's just Josh. I mean, Brandon Cooks.
Make a catch.
I do not think it was a catch.
Right.
But Brandon Cooks, hold on to the ball. Hold on to the ball. If he holds on to the ball, the Bills win. We're not talking about any of this. Now, do I think that was a tough call? Yeah, but I think it was the right one.
Me too.
If you're going down to the ground, you have to survive the ground. He didn't. I don't agree with Sean looking at it 20 times, thinking it's a catch, and he just kept harping on the process. They looked at it. They looked at it like 10 times. We all looked at it 10 times. There's nothing on there that was going to make them change it. Now, I'll tell you this much. The pass interference on Taron Johnson, that one really bothered me.
Agree.
Because there was a play in regulation where Riley Moss held Brandon Cook's arm down way worse.
In the end zone, yeah, right.
In the end zone. So that's the stuff that really frustrates me. I can live with the Tre'Davious White pass interference. I would have preferred they let him play. But the one on Taron Johnson not only wasn't interference, but it was significantly less than what Riley Moss did to Brandon Cooks in the end zone. That's the stuff that's tough to stomach as a player because you really just want consistency. Like last night in the national championship game, they really let those guys play. And that's cool. That's cool. Then let them play.
And there was a roughing the passer penalty against Joey Bosa on the Taron Johnson flag.
Right, so they would have
been
a first down anyway on that.
2
play,
yards,
but,
2 yards different.
Yeah.
Insider Calls brought to you by Nationwide. For your insurance and financial needs, Nationwide is on your side. So, Ross, do you have a big idea for the Bills, like where they go from here at coach?
Well, I'll tell you one thing I think that's interesting about it is the timing of it all. Because I wonder what Kevin Stefanski and John Harbaugh are thinking right now. And I wonder if there could have been some way, behind the back channels to say, hey, you might want to just slow your roll a little bit. A lot of people think that that's why John Harbaugh waited till after the first weekend. He wanted to see what happened if the Packers lost, what happened if the Bills lost. Packers lost, and they decided to stick with LaFleur. The Bills won. And I think at that point, Harbaugh thought, well, they won. They're not going to move on from him. And they would never say this, but I find it hard to believe you'd rather hitch your wagon with Jackson Dart or Michael Penix than Josh freaking Allen. And so I'm not saying they're going to pull a Belichick and resign on a napkin and try to take the Bills job. But the timing of it is weird because, I got asked on Sunday on Nick Costos' show. He said, do you think the Bills would fire, or Saturday, do you think the Bills would fire Sean McDermott? And I said, no, not anymore. Not now that Harbaugh and Stefanski have jobs, because who are you going to get that you feel confident is better? And, I don't know. You tell me. Are they going to promote Joe Brady? Is it going to be Brian Daboll? I mean, look, maybe those guys will come in and do a terrific job, but I don't see what the evidence is that those guys would be any better than Sean was.
Ross, just a couple minutes for you. Who wins the Super Bowl?
Seattle Seahawks.
Seattle.
Yeah, I think it's Seattle Seahawks. So I'll be on the sideline Sunday in Seattle. Haven't been there in a long time. By the way, that was one of our more fun wins back in
04, right?
That pitch play.
The pitch play to McGahee, right.
Yeah, that's when they were really good. They went to the Super Bowl that year or the next year, one of them. And maybe it was the next year. They went to the Super Bowl against the Steelers, but we killed them. I mean, we murdered them, and they were pretty good, and we did the fake quarterback sneak. Like, everything about that game was everybody, it's so loud, it's so loud. It wasn't loud that day. So I'm looking forward to being there on Sunday. I just think they just got that look right now. They've got that look. I mean, and, the Broncos lose their quarterback. Patriots have a chance, but I think Seattle's the best team. I thought the Rams were the best team. until the fourth quarter of the game in Seattle. And since then, I think Seattle's been the best team. They just have that look, man. I mean, they're running it really well. Their defense is flying around. You know, for the Rams to win that game, the difference between Stafford and Darnold has to be significant. Stafford has to play like MVP caliber, and Darnold has to play probably below average, because it doesn't feel like the Rams are what they were earlier in the year. Is it fair to assume everybody in Buffalo wants Denver to win and they don't want to see the Patriots in the Super Bowl again?
Sure.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Like I wonder, Ross, how much a part in all of what has happened here, just like circling all the way back to the beginning here, watching New England play at home against Houston on Sunday in a year where they're coming off back-to-back 4-13 seasons. If I'm Terry Pagula, I might have been looking at my TV going, that's supposed to be us. That's our division. Why'd we lose to Miami? Why couldn't we figure out how to block people when we played Atlanta or Houston? That should be us. We should have been hosting somebody in the divisional round and going to Denver to play Jarrett Stidham.
Guess what, Bulldog? We talked about that back the first hit in September.
Yep.
I said you can't lose games like that. And I think that's not really McDermott's fault that the Patriots are good now, but I do think that changed the equation a little bit.
Yeah.
I think the fact that the Patriots are now at the top of the division, that Pagula, he's not ready for that, nor should he be, to kind of give that up and feel like they're going in the wrong direction.
Ross, thanks for today. We'll talk again next week.
Sounds great. See you guys.
That was our man, Audacy NFL insider Ross Tucker. His insider calls are brought to you by Nationwide. For your insurance and financial needs, Nationwide is on your side.
McGahee had 4 touchdowns in that, rushing in that Seattle game. Memorable. 38-9. What a great score.
I wanted to ask him, but we were pressed for time. Isn't there a story about Malarkey taking them on a walk in Seattle out for cheeseburgers or something like that? It was a part of that whole thing. All right. Maybe we're going to revisit that some other time with Ross, although maybe it'll never come up again.
He first quickly said, I haven't been there in a while, and then mentioned that game from 2004. I've got a sushi place for him if he wants it.
All right. Good to know.
We were getting sushi on a walk from, what is it called? The Queen Anne district, beautiful area of the city of Seattle, down to the water, where there's that Ferris wheel and all kinds of, a big scene down there. And we're walking down there, and 2 things happened on this walk, pretty much downhill the whole way. One is my daughter had sort of her head down and banged it full speed into like this vent that was sticking out of a building, and sort of just went down, just crumpled. She just didn't look, didn't see it, and just right into the vent. And then, we got through that and then went to this sushi place, and my son inadvertently dropped. It was like, not high end, but it was good. It's Seattle, it's going to be good. And the guy's like making it right in front of you, one of these places, like we're sort of at a bar, and passes my son the platter, and he's a chopsticks guy. Like, let's do it right.
Yep.
So he picks up the one piece of sushi with the chopsticks, and it slips on him, and he drops it right into his Coke. And he just reaches in there and eats it right out of the Coke. Why not? I mean,
Coke-infused sushi. Wow.
Mom and Dad paid for this.
Yeah.
And the chef saw it, and he made him a whole new roll, which was very considerate.
Thoughtful, yeah. Good.
Willis McGahee